What does it take to catch a serial killer? This question may not have a straightforward answer. The story we're about to delve into is a chilling example of this complexity. It revolves around a man named Ted Bundy, a name that's synonymous with the very essence of evil. Bundy was not your typical killer. On the surface, he was charming, charismatic, and well-educated. He was the guy next door, the one you'd least suspect. He had a law degree, was active in politics, and was even considered handsome by many. But beneath this veneer of normality lurked a terrifying secret life. In the mid-70s, Bundy's true nature began to reveal itself. It started in the scenic state of Washington, where young women began to mysteriously disappear. One by one, they vanished, leaving behind a community in distress and a growing sense of unease. There was Linda Ann Healy, a college student with a bright future, who disappeared from her home in Seattle. Then there was Susan Rancourt, who went missing after an evening meeting at Central Washington State College. The list kept growing, each name adding to the dread that something sinister was happening. The local police were baffled. There were no witnesses, no reliable leads. The only common thread was the chilling fact that all these women were young, attractive, and bore a striking resemblance to each other. But at the time, no one could connect these dots to Ted Bundy. As the number of disappearances grew, so did the fear within the community. Parents warned their daughters to be careful, to not go out alone at night. The usual tranquility of the Pacific Northwest was replaced with an unsettling air of apprehension. And through all this, Bundy remained a free man, living his double life. He was able to blend in, to hide in plain sight. His charm and intelligence made him seem like the least likely suspect. His crimes were hidden behind a mask of normalcy, making him one of the most elusive killers in history. But how did this charming man become America's most notorious serial killer? As the body count rose, so did the pressure to catch the killer. Our story takes us to the year 1974, when Ted Bundy, a charming law student, moves to Utah, leaving behind a chilling trail of unsolved murders in the Pacific Northwest. But the tranquility of this new location wouldn't last long. Almost as if following Bundy, a hauntingly familiar pattern of disappearances and brutal murders of young women began to emerge. The same terror, it seemed, had found a new hunting ground. The similarities in these crimes were too uncanny to ignore. The victims were all attractive, with long dark hair parted in the middle, just like Bundy's ex-girlfriend. The modus operandi was eerily similar too. The perpetrator would often feign injury or disability to lure his victims before overpowering them. The grim pattern was unmistakable. Bundy had brought his reign of terror to Utah. However, the first major break in the case didn't come from a crime scene, but rather from an unexpected discovery on a quiet residential street. One night, a patrol officer stumbled upon an unassuming Volkswagen Beetle parked in an unusually suspicious manner. The vehicle's interior was stripped of its passenger seat, and a slew of suspicious items were found, including a ski mask, a crowbar, handcuffs, and an ice pick. This discovery connected Bundy to the wave of crimes and gave the investigators their first solid lead. Yet, despite the mounting evidence, the elusive Bundy, with his manipulative charm and convincing demeanor, managed to create a shroud of doubt around his involvement. He cleverly exploited the limitations of the then forensics technology and the lack of interstate police coordination. His ability to blend into society and his constant moving across state lines further complicated the investigation. Despite being under the radar and even facing arrest, Bundy, like a ghost, slipped through the fingers of justice, leaving the law enforcement baffled and frustrated. The cat-and-mouse game had just begun. Despite the mounting evidence, the cunning killer managed to slip through the cracks yet again. Fate finally caught up with Bundy in August 1975. The dark cloud that had been hanging over the Pacific Northwest began to dissipate when a routine traffic stop in Utah took an unexpected turn. Ted Bundy, known for his charismatic charm and good looks, was pulled over for evading a police officer. It was in the dead of night, and something didn't quite add up. As the officer approached Bundy's car, he was met with an unusual sight. The vehicle was almost barren save for a suspicious collection of items: a crowbar, a ski mask, rope, handcuffs, and an ice pick. The items were eerily similar to those reported missing from several crime scenes linked to the disappearances of young women. Bundy was arrested on the spot. The seemingly insignificant traffic stop had inadvertently led to the first capture of one of America's most notorious serial killers. But this was just the beginning of the end for Bundy. Bundy, however, was not one to be easily caged. His cunning and resourcefulness led to not one but two daring escapes from police custody. The first escape occurred in Aspen, Colorado in the summer of 1977. Bundy, representing himself in court, requested to visit the courthouse library to research for his defense. Unsupervised, he jumped from the second-story window and disappeared into the wilderness. For 6 days, Bundy eluded capture, surviving on stolen food and shelter, but his freedom was short-lived. He was recaptured when he got lost while attempting to drive out of Aspen in a stolen car. But Bundy's taste of freedom had whetted his appetite, and he was already planning his next escape. This time he outwitted the authorities from inside the Garfield County Jail. Over weeks he lost weight, enabling him to wriggle through a hole in the ceiling of his cell that he had sawn with a smuggled hacksaw blade. Just days before New Year's Eve in 1977, Bundy was on the run again. His next stop was Tallahassee, Florida, where he committed one of his most horrific crimes. In the early morning hours of January 15, 1978, he broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. Within a span of 15 minutes, Bundy attacked 4 women, leaving 2 dead and the others severely injured. This brutal rampage sent a wave of terror through the community. Yet even as the police ramped up their efforts, Bundy remained at large, leaving more victims in his wake. His brazen acts of violence were a chilling testament to his ruthiness and his complete disregard for human life. Bundy's reign of terror reached new heights, but his end was near. His capture would soon come, but not before he had left an indelible mark on American history, forever changing our understanding of the word monster. The end of the road for Bundy came on February 15, 1978. After years of terror, the relentless pursuit by law enforcement finally bore fruit in the early hours of that day in Pensacola, Florida. Bundy, driving a stolen vehicle, was stopped by a patrol officer. Initially he gave a false name, but the officer, wary of his nervous demeanor, discovered stolen items in the car. Bundy attempted to flee but was apprehended after a short chase. In custody, the real identity of the man was revealed. Bundy, America's most wanted, was finally behind bars. But just his capture was not the end. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter, the trial. As the trial unfolded, the depth of Bundy's depravity came to light. The evidence against him was overwhelming, from the chilling bite mark evidence found on one of his victims to the gruesome artifacts of his heinous crimes found in his apartment. The prosecution built an ironclad case. But Bundy, ever the narcissist, refused to be just an accused standing trial. He decided to represent himself, turning the courtroom into his stage. He reveled in the media attention, his charm and intelligence on full display. However, the most shocking part of the trial was Bundy's own confessions. In a chilling moment, he admitted to over 30 homicides, detailing his gruesome deeds with a cold detachment. His confessions, delivered in a calm, matter-of-fact tone, sent shivers down the spines of those in the courtroom. Despite his attempts at manipulation, the jury saw through Bundy's charade. He was found guilty and sentenced to death. His execution, however, would not come until nearly a decade later, after he had exhausted all his appeals. And so, the long and harrowing saga of Ted Bundy came to an end, leaving a chilling legacy of evil in its wake. What can we learn from the hunt for Ted Bundy? It's a question that echoes in the halls of law enforcement agencies and criminology classrooms even today. The pursuit of Bundy was fraught with unprecedented challenges, a haunting reminder of the cunning and malevolence that can lurk beneath the most charming of facades. The Bundy case served as a catalyst, propelling significant advancements in investigative techniques. It was a stark wake-up call, highlighting the importance of interagency communication, the utility of psychological profiling, and the indispensable role of forensics in connecting seemingly disparate crime scenes. Yet perhaps the most crucial lesson lies not in the realm of procedural improvements, but in the recognition of our collective responsibility. It's about acknowledging that the battle against such monstrous threads isn't confined to the realm of law enforcement. In the end, catching a serial killer like Ted Bundy takes more than just good police work. It takes a society willing to recognize and confront the evil that walks among us.